Hi everyone, my name is Ali Rufar and I have been doing calligraphy for I think more than a half a century, but still I need to learn more and more and more, and I'm still looking for some material and some advanced material to learn more about this. One of the advantages about the calligraphy, I'm talking about the Persian calligraphy or Islamic calligraphy, and I'm pretty sure is the same in other calligraphy because calligraphy is not just handwriting, but it is part of the spirit of living. Before I had an interview and talked about the spirit of Persian calligraphy or Nastaliq posted on YouTube, and you can watch it. And I don't need to repeat those things that I mentioned in that video, and more likely because this is a session for the workshop. I'm going through the technique of the calligraphy and the way it changed from primitive manuscript to an artwork. How it turned from manuscript to artwork is an interesting story. And you see how the thing changed and why things changed from that primitive writing to one advanced writing as calligraphy and then became an art. So there is a spirit in it. It cannot be happening unless there is a strong background behind that. Anything happens in this world that has a spirit, it advances and it goes beyond our imagination. Why the art has no limit, no limitation. The more you go, the more you want to go. Because it is part of our existence. Our existence, no matter how long we live, I'm talking about the existence of the humanity. The more we go, the more we are thirsty to go. The more we advance, the more we want to be advanced. That's the nature of human. And the nature of human never stops. Elevate as much as the capacity of a person is and the whole history. All changes of the history is by that. And along with that, of course, many anti-humanity has advanced too. I'm not going through those things. The ideology of pluralism and justice, but you see that in many places, many different history, different time of the history, the art has improved, has changed, has advanced. And if you look at the history of countries, history of the civilization, perhaps you find a common change. Whenever there was cruelty, there was some pressure on the people, the art developed. The art flourished. Why? Because art is the ultimate willing of human, the ultimate willing of what we need to be, where we want to go, and how we are deprived for moving towards better. So another word, art is language of revolutions. Whenever you see the art is improving, just look behind that and beyond that to see what you see as of the human willing. Now, looks like I'm going far from the technique of the changes, but you know probably, and you probably at least you have heard that these kind of calligraphy, Persian calligraphy or Arabic calligraphy, all are categorized under the Islamic calligraphy or somehow Islamic art. If we want to categorize them, first we talk about the Islamic art, and subcategory for the Islamic art is few things. Is calligraphy, is music, and is architecture. Perhaps this question comes to your mind, why we don't have painting. Painting is an art. We do have painting, but painting is another category under the category of architecture. Dancing, subcategory of calligraphy, or subcategory of music. These are all art, but mainly we are talking about calligraphy, music, and architecture. If you go to a place that has all these things together, probably you have been in some part of the world that they have all this. We have in Iran many of these. Iran actually, you walk down a street, you are in a museum of art. But you need to have that much heart to see that. Every single store, not every one of them, but 99% of stores, their sign, their advertising is by a beautiful calligraphy. I remember once I went to a bank, and the bank was very crowded. You had to take turn, one of those machine that gives you a ticket. I had a ticket, but there were a couple of beautiful calligraphy on the wall talking about the rules of transactions, money, saving, market, these kind of things, which is completely technical. but it was written in a very beautiful manuscript, calligraphy type. And I was completely into those things. I forgot that how crowded the bank is. And all of a sudden, a person next to me saw the ticket in my hand and just like waking me up, shakes me and says, "Your turn, why don't you go? They called your number." Then I looked at it and I said, yeah, for example, my number is 31 and on the board it says 31. Because I was completely into that calligraphy, I forgot where I am. The calligraphy dominated me. And then, of course, I went and it was a real good dream. I wish I didn't wake up. Because when I woke up and they called me, I went to the kiosk and paid. So that was a pain. Anyways, whenever you have a place with calligraphy, with architecture, with music, you feel you are like in another world. It is not something that I say or somewhere is written. I have seen it. I have experienced it. And I have heard from other people that they were in the same position or category that I am talking about. How many times I have seen people, they are crying, including me, when we are in an atmosphere that we have calligraphy, we have beautiful building designs, we have music. And of course, when I talked about the music, those classical music that you know which one I'm talking about, Arabic or Persian or Flamenco or Spanish or any or like from Mozart, from Beethoven. Those kind of music, they have the same root together. They are together. They are just represented in a different form by different instrument, by different composition, but they are the same. Perhaps you have heard some Quranic version where some experts, they recite Quran in a form of like singing. No matter what the meaning is, if you know the verses that they are reciting or you don't know, doesn't matter. The tone of that music takes you to another level of the world, takes you to a different dimension. Provided you don't have anything against like Islam or Quran, just feel it as a music. When we want to write a beautiful, for example, a more beautiful calligraphy, we set a music, and that music helps us to write better. If you are in a place that has beautiful design of architecture, design of building, that takes you to the spirit of those things, you feel different. You feel like you are in a philharmony musical situation. So these are coming from the evolution of calligraphy or the ultimate advance of manuscript. So let me see if I have a kind of music to show you here, and you just can listen to this. Yeah, this is kind of music that I was talking about, and along with that, writing. Then I go back to the name of this calligraphy, which is called Islamic calligraphy. It started from very simple handwriting, like a first grader. So going back to 14th century ago, when before Islam will be presented to the world, there was a kind of handwriting was called Kufic. And the Kufic was a sort of very simple form, which today even it's not easy to write or read. For example, this was Besini, but it didn't have a dot. This is like, for example, another one, easier one, the letter Ba and letter Nun. Today, even if we want to read it, we have to put a dot here, is like Ba, and the dot here like Nun. But that time it didn't have any dot or any accent that you call it B or Ba or O. So it was easy for Arab people to read it, but for other people, especially when Islam came to Iran, it was very difficult, almost impossible for people to read it, because this was familiar for Arab people. and they even didn't need any dot or any accent to read that. But for Persian people, of course, it was impossible. Then Arab people, especially those they were pioneer of Islam, they came up with some technique to find how to read it, how to write it that people can read it without any difficulty. So they created accents and dots. There are 18 characters in Persian or Arabic alphabet. But technically we have 32 alphabet characters. There are 18 characters, but they are expandable to 32. And those signs that make it more, actually it's about 14 more characters to complete an alphabet set is just by dot. That day the letter Ba was written like this. It's similar to the pronunciation of B. They were writing like this. But how could you realize this is B? Why later this one interpreted to P, to T, and the sound of TH, like follows, or da. Just by the dots. They put one dot here, it became Ba. They put 3 dots here, became P. They put 2 dots here, it was pronounced T, and you put 3 dots here, is pronounced this. So one shape became 1, 2, 3, 4 different letters. And after the dots was created, then it was easier for Iranian to read it, because Iran was the main country and the first country, actually, the first civilized country turned to Islam. And there are, of course, different stories behind that, why they turned to Islam. So I don't want to fall in that discussion, but more likely I have heard and I have read that because of civilization they had, they were more ready than other community to absorb a new ideology. The more advanced country you are, the more ready you absorb new ideas. So then later this one changed. Today it is like this. from Kufi to the last one, which is Nastali. But between this and this, there is a big journey. What happened? When it came to Iran, the manuscript was like this. Like this. This is one of the scripts for in early Islam in Iran, Kufi. Or this one with more decoration, and it was in Iran. And it's called Decorative Kufi. But they were good for like 1 page, 2 page writing, and you see it's very difficult to write a book, all of them like this. So another easier style was this one or this one. These are easier to write, more clear to read, and of course for those they were writing this, it was much more easier and faster to write a book like this. When I talk about the book, then I want to just why it was necessary to write a book. Iranian, they had their own manuscript. Why should they go to this? The reason they picked this and they wrote this was because of the religion. And the religion was Islam. And the book of Islam is Quran. When Islam came to Iran, people, they needed many people, they needed Quran book to read, to practice the new religion. When the Islam came to Iran, came with this message that there is no slave, there is no discrimination, no difference between people, and no advantage between people by their wealth, their skin color, their education, their job, nothing. All people, they are coming from one source, therefore they are the same. At that time, Iran was it was a very civilized country, but in the meantime, it was very discriminating. Like people who were like farmers, no matter how talented they were, they never had chance to change their, career from being farmer turning to another to like engineering, or an engineer not to become a merchant. So this was the most important thing, that people were suffering from this, and when Islam came and gave them this message or slogan that all of you are the same, of course, they went to Islam. There are some other reasons which is not for this discussion. And then, to understand what the new ideology is, they had to have Quran. And Quran is not just a simple, small book. Quran is a book with like this big. How many pages with this one that I have is, I don't know, there is no page here, but yeah, more than 800 pages. So imagine that someone wants to write this with this script. Who they were writing this? New Muslims, new Iranian, they had converted to Islam. We are not talking about the religion. We are talking about the changes in society. So first they had to learn how to write this, which is a very high and very hard job, a big time hard job. And then they had to write it correctly. That's very important to write Quran, to be very correct. And the reason I'm trying to give more explanation about these things and how people they were writing this, because this is the foundation of all changes that we have in calligraphy after that. So imagine that for an Iranian, a new language for an Iranian, they want to write a Quran like this. And besides, every single word has different meaning by different accent. Like if you have a letter, it's like the sound of this letter is like K. We call it cough, K. If you put an accent like this below it, it relates to female. In Arabic language, we have male and female, like Spanish, French. And if you put a accent like this, it's for male. So you can imagine how difficult it is for a person to write this whilst the language of that person is not Arabic. And the handwriting is not like an Arab person, a new person to this language, to this manuscript, to this alphabet, and to these accents. How difficult it could be. In the meantime, there was a big concern not to be written incorrectly, because the meaning of the whole sentence, sometimes the whole chapter, changed. And it was very important that the message is given to people as their original. And the original comes from revelation by Muhammad, the messenger of Islam. So therefore nothing to be changed. Nobody has a right to write by their own judgment. And that's why the Quran stayed with the same meaning from the beginning up to now. And whoever wrote one Quran, there were a group that they were in a higher education and trustworthy to edit the book and to see if there is any wrong word written has to be changed. Sometimes they had to change one page because of one small mistake. So you can imagine, I don't want to talk more and more about this, but you can imagine how difficult it was. And this difficulty was the foundation of calligraphy. How? In fact, when they were writing to do this, they had to be very careful and write every single word with complete attention and be cautious not to make the mistake. And in the meantime, it should be that clear that people can read it without difficulty. So they had to write it very, very slowly. And this is actually very easy to understand. If you write a line in any language, even in the language that your mother tongue language, a person who writes one sentence in 2 minutes can be more beautiful than a person who writes in 20 seconds. The slower you write, the more beautiful you get as a result. So here, gradually, it became like a calligraphy. It became something more than a regular handwriting. If it was in Saudi Arabia, never ever turned to a calligraphy because however they write it, other people could read it. They could understand what it is even without accent, even without dots. But when it was in Iran, it was something that was considered as something that people can read it. So therefore, this slow writing helped that they write it better, in a better shape. Let's see what happens when they are writing slowly. Someone writes like the letter we talked about, letter box is this. And all are corners. One corner here, one corner here, one corner here. And they want to write it very slowly. And of course, when you write slowly, people can read it much better. But there is another element you need to add this, which is the foundation of calligraphy. And pay completely attention to this, please, which turned a Kufic writing. When I say Kufic, don't look at the other design here. Look at the just word. Don't look at those different colors which give a taste to your writing. These are decorative. And if you look at a page like this without those decoration, it's ugly. It's not ugly, but it's not very sweet to look at it. And then the elements which cause to become a calligraphy. Speed. How? When people were writing Quran, not that many people could do that. There was no printing material. There was no printing factory. There was no machinery. One by one, every single Quran, it was written by one person. And look at that size of a book that someone wants to write it. How many years they can finish one book? They are very, very fast, at the most one Quran a year. And today is the same. If I want to write a Quran, I need to be very patient, especially in this life, the current life. It's very difficult that someone sits to write a Quran and can finish it very soon. But that time, there was a big demand for Quran. And the people who were able to write Quran were very limited because of education, knowing another country's language, and being familiar with all single accent that needs to be performed in writing. So these are two contradictions. A slow writing, because I want to be very, very correct. I don't want to send it to the editing committee and they turn it back to me, then I redo it. Another thing is the demand is too high. If I write one Quran in 1 year, how much money I make versus I write 4 Quran a year. And those people, they were writing, there were two groups. One for their own belief, they were writing Quran, and one group that they were writing only for the business purpose of this, to sell to the market. And I believe those that they were selling to the market were more than people they were doing by their own belief. Who pays for your belief? Morning to the middle of night, you are devoting your life to your belief. Not even a piece of pizza can be given to you to reimburse your belief. But as long as you are doing for commercial, because of that much demand, a country, they need Quran, and the shortage of Quran, of course, the price goes higher and higher. At that time, there was a boom, a business boom, and the more you write it, the better money you could have. But writing slowly, we talked about that. But writing fast, when you can practice this by your own. If you have a piece of paper and like a Sharpie, not a regular pencil or pen. And if you want to write the same letter but a little faster, if you want it slow, you take your pen off the paper and you add this. But if you want to do fast, when you are here, you don't hesitate here. Right away you turn it back. That gives you rotations. Rotation starts from here. I give you another example for like a word. Like very famous word is Bismillah. Bes means in the name of. Bismillah means in the name of God. You see this one more than everything else in Islamic uh, transcripts. Bismillah. Today, Bismillah is all like this. I have written this in a form of composition. This is one Bes, this is Allah. Bismillah. One word and second word. But when you are doing all together and putting in on above or below each other using different size of pen, then you come up with something like that, which is known as an art form. And it shows the power of the words, power of the letters. Let's do that in form of very slow writing in Kufi. Kufi. Like it's 14th century ago. I am one of those people who write Quran to sell in the market. And I am very smart person, not me, I mean, if I am there, to write Quran and sell it in the market rather than sitting someone else writes for me. So, then I put this, 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 this is from here to here is this, and I put the dot very carefully right behind this to be read as B. And now I want to write Allah. Aleph. Le. Allah has two L. Le. Bismillah. This is kind of like advanced Kufi. Slowly, very slowly. To do that, I need to use a small line and put them all together. But now I want to write it a little bit faster. But when I do faster, I don't want to lose the beauty of this or the possibility to be read easily. So when I come here, right away I turn it to and then go like that. Did you notice what happened? When I go to the time that I have to do another line, I didn't take the pen off the paper and turn the pen. Coming here and then doing this. Coming here, doing this. And again, from here, instead of taking the pen, I keep the pen, do this next one, and do the next one, do the next one. Therefore, this speed when I use, naturally at the corners it becomes curved. And curve and curve, or Allah, when I do the Allah, you see the difference? Then it becomes more attractive. Then people notice, wow, we can write it in a better form. And the reason and the way, the style, the technique that we can write it more beautiful is not to take off the pen from the paper. Write continuously. As long as you have enough ink on the tip of the pen, you can continue. So here it became different writing, different style. But it still is not calligraphy, still is something else. Then what happened? It became calligraphy. It continued like this, and then gradually many different people, they were writing Quran with a different style than the early Kufi. And at that time, the 3rd century of Islam, this handwriting or this manuscript became at the highest level of its beauty in Iran. And still in Saudi Arabia or Arab Peninsula, which was the mother of this writing, it never changed. And still, they haven't changed it yet. They are, because they didn't need it. They didn't look at the, maybe they are now looking at words differently. But at that time, they didn't do that. They didn't see the necessity of changing it. They continued with regular Kufic alphabet. In 3 centuries, because of this, let's say you are living in Portland, I am living in Seattle, another person living in LA. All of us are writing this, and there are no communication between us. At that time, there was no Facebook, no Instagram, nothing. They didn't know who is living 10 miles away, how many calligrapher or Quran writer even in one neighborhood. So everyone has his, I don't say hair, because at that time it was kind of like forbidden to give this to ladies to write Quran. Today, I'm glad that we have many calligraphers, they are females. And even their work is somehow much better than male because they have more delicate soul than men. So, because they were not aware of who is writing how, everyone has his own style to write. Because of that, of course, when we are different people and each one of us wants to present something beautiful, we go separately in a different style. Like if you want to write, if you want to wear a beautiful cloth, every single one has his or her own taste. It was the same. And within the 3 centuries of the beginning of Islam, more than 35, I guess, 35 style of calligraphy flourished all over Iran. And it was, of course, most of them were very beautiful, but not really in harmony. Until beginning of 4th century, an unmatched calligrapher, his name is Ibn Mughla. Ib means the son of person names Mughla. An educated man, an unmatched calligrapher, a political man, and a very wise person. He thought that someone should do something. This calligraphy is very wide, and this chaos is going to be somehow in future against the nature of conveying message. These are today is more understandable that if you want to convey a message in a beautiful form of writing, of course you can convey a message easier, better, and faster. Someone that understands this that day is amazing. Today maybe it's not that difficult for us to say, okay, conveying a message needs to have its certain criteria. But that person, because he was one of the educated and wise person, he understood this and wanted to do something and to change these things, to harmonize all 35 or more than 35 style to bring it in one style. It was called that unleashed calligraphy. And he wants to leash it, to give a harmony, to give a better presentation of Quranic verses. So he started working on this concept, and I think you don't need my email address any longer. So he used geometry. He looked at alphabet, he looked at what it was written. Then the first thing came to his mind was geometry. And he started using geometry by using the square. And his foundation was a square. He drew a square. He used the most common letter that could place in that square, which is the letter Nun, or is similar pronunciation as N, and has a shape of like this. So he draw a square like this and put that letter inside it. Then it started to evaluate it and to measure it and to see how it could be defined as a complete square. So by that tools that he had in geometry, he said, okay, the Nun is this side up to here equal to a certain measurement, and this one is certain measurement, going down to certain measurement and going up by certain measurement. And when it is finished, should I finish it here or should I finish it here? Then detail things. So the measurement, the tape measure was the square dots by the same pen that you are writing. If you are writing a letter Nun by this size pen, then your measurement tape, your measure tape is this. Like, for example, this is my first, or 1 inch, or 2 inch, or 3 inch. For example, I am saying inch for better understanding, but doesn't have any equality with the inch. 1, 2, 3, nokte. Nokte is the dot. So then, after that, he said, okay, here is 2 nokte, and then it comes down another 2 nokte. Then goes up another, all by surrounding this square, not going wide of the square. So each part of each side has a certain measurement. So therefore it became one letter as Nun. And based on that, the other alphabet letters was measured. How many dots or nokte could be one aleph? In proportion with Nun, where should I start? Where should I end that I have a beautiful aleph in harmony with this? He never went like, my aleph or A is this size, or this size, or coming below the Nun level. So after doing this, he came up with a certain rules and called those rules the rules of being or achieving the dignity and grace, which is the ultimate level of calligraphy. In Islamic concept, the highest level of everything is not the education. The education is necessary, but ultimate level is achieving grace, achieving dignity. If any of these kind of things, prayer, ideology, calligraphy, anything you pick has to make you a person with a complete form of beauty spirit. So therefore he came up with 10 rules and says these 10 rules makes your handwriting beautiful. And if you use these 10 rules and utilize these 10 rules in your writing becomes at the level that is deserved to be called grace and dignity, which means that your character has improved to that. So, to do that, he had to name this. Then he called it Nask. Nask means to cross out any manuscript that was known by that time, and none of them is acceptable. And this one that I call it Nas is the one that is accepted as a geometric form of alphabet. So therefore, he called it Nask. Therefore, after Kufi, Nask became the first one. And it's written like this. Then 3 more script equal to this, but a little bit more decorative, was created by him, and another 2 was created again by him for faster writing. Those called Ruqya and Riqa. Ruqya and Riqa means letters. These are for artistic writing, those 2 for regular writing. So he gave all tools to every purpose that it was needed. And he brought this to the Islamic art, Islamic calligraphy, as the first big step towards evolution. And it became the major form of writing. So from there on, there is some other changes, which are big changes too. This one is the first big change in Islamic art, Islamic calligraphy art. And then after that, there was another one that is called Nastaliq, and Nastaliq is a second movement of the calligraphy, and up to now it is known as the 7th Islamic art, 7th Islamic calligraphy, and the most beautiful one. That conjunction from Kufi or chaos of writing to another regulated writing, Nas by Ibn Mawla, 4th century of Islam. which is the 11th century of the Western calendar. And then another conjunction comes after that to Nastagir, which made a big change in the world of this art. I think today is enough to talk about this. It's too much things to talk, and I'm sure if you are watching this, if you don't get bored, but if I continue a little bit more, you are getting bored for sure. But I reserve these things for myself to continue another conjunction for Nastali in another time. So please watch for the next video that shows what happened, and from there on we can discuss the different form of the handwriting or manuscript or artistic changes that happen. Until then, I wish you the best, and hopefully I hear from you if you have any question or if you have any concern. Please contact me, aliroufar@yahoo.com, ALIROUHFAR @yahoo.com.